is that David Obey, chair of Appropriations in the House, is letting some lipstick go on the $33 billion appropriation for escalating war in Afghanistan. And that lipstick is $23 billion for teachers so that they don't lose their jobs. Obey knows better. What he's done here is bow to the Washington establishment that want to continue this war. It looks very much as though what he will report out of his committee this evening is a bill that includes $23 billion for teachers, keep the schools going, and $33 billion for Afghanistan to keep that feckless war going and more and more people being killed. It's just really, I was a former admirer of David Obey, and so I wrote him a memorandum that is appeared already on AfterDowningStreet.com. I guess it's now called WarIsACrime.org. And you can see that he's being completely disingenuous because as recently as 2 months ago, he told a TV interviewer that this Afghanistan adventure, it's a fool's errand. But if we're going to do it, we have to pay for it. We have to fully fund it. Now, what kind of logic does that make, Alex? It's a fool's errand, but if we're going to do it, we got to fund it.
Well, Ray McGovern, let me throw this out at you, and then you can expand on your concern with what's happening in Afghanistan, expanding into Pakistan.
Sure.
But in layman's terms, I'm somebody who sits there and studies it for years, and so I want your perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong. You've got all these pipelines going through there, trillions in the aggregate of oil, hundreds of billions in no-bid contract black holes. So the defense lobby likes it. The oil lobby likes it. Israel likes it because, that gets the U.S. more firmly burrowed into the Middle East and Central Asia. So that lobby likes it. But more importantly, $500 billion a year, 91% now. It was a lot lower of the opium pouring out into Russia, into Asia. Kind of a replay of the Boxer Rebellion, part 2. And now our troops are admittedly over there, quote, protecting the poppy fields. And so I think you've got at least the contractors that's coming out. That's what Sybil Edmonds said pre 9/11, shipping the opium into Turkey, you name it. And so it's really about narcotics. And so people look at the policy and say, why are we there? Well, we're really there because Black Ops likes $500 billion.
Well, that's part of it, Alex, to be sure. The other part is a more kind of geopolitical adventure here. Imperialism is not dead. If you look at Afghanistan, you'll see that it's strategically located in the same neighborhood as China, as Iran, as Russia, really, Turkey, Iraq. It's right there in the middle of things. And so the way the empire looks at things is, well, we got to be in there firstest with the mostest, even if it's mostly an attempt to deny the Chinese or the Russians or the Indians or whomever from getting in there before we were. Now, what makes Afghanistan strategic? Well, one of the things that makes it strategic is that it lies directly beneath a country called Turkmenistan, which used to be part of the Soviet Union, and Turkmenistan has in it natural gas deposits worth all the oil under the sands of Iraq. Now, the problem is Chevron's in there, a lot of the oil companies are in there, natural gas companies, but you can't get it here from there, okay? You got to do a pipeline, and you can't have that pipeline go through Russia. You have to have it go south. And guess what the next country is Afghanistan, and then Pakistan, and then a little slice of India. And at the terminal of this projected pipeline, all the studies were done and was ready to go. Guess what? Enron was supposed to be the person marketing that natural gas. So the whole thing is as corrupt as can be. The Taliban visited Houston, Texas, when Governor George Bush expressed interest in what was going on there with this pipeline. Our ambassador to Afghanistan and later to Iraq, Khalid Zad, was one of the people involved in this, and so was Karzai.
Yeah, he was the Unicol executive.
Yeah. So that's part of it. Now, I'm not saying that's the whole thing. The whole ball of wax involves the strategic location. And what needs to happen here, Alex, in my view, is pretty simple. There's a finite amount of oil. There's a finite infinite amount of natural gas in this world. Now, if we're going to try to seize it all or seize control of it, then Iraq can be looked on as simply the first resource war of the 21st century. What we have to do is what my 4-year-old grandson learns in nursery school. I went up and I asked his teacher, what do you expect to teach these kids? And she said, that's simple. We teach them that they have to learn to share. A certain amount of toys on the table, they have to learn to share because there's a finite amount of things. And I said, wow, there it is. Cheney, Bush, even now Obama, they never went to this nursery school for sure. What has to happen is we get together with the Chinese, the Indians, and other people who need that oil and gas, figure out how to share it.
And jointly develop it instead. I mean, we go back to 53. That's what caused the whole Iran thing, as you know. Mohammed Mossadegh said we're going to keep 25% of our own money to American oil companies and British oil companies. And they said, no, we get everything. We overthrow you using the Muslim extremist. I mean, it's the same story every time.
That's right. Well, that was a company called BP, actually, which I think has been in the news lately. You get a corrupt enterprise like British Petroleum, which controlled all the oil in Iran prior to the revolution in 53, and if you let them persuade you to overthrow the governments there, then as night follows the day, they will be filled with the uncontrollable hubris that they've demonstrated now in the Gulf of Mexico, and the people of the world, the simple people like you and me, Alex, have a real problem.
And it's the same thing over and over again. I think, what was BP called? Anglo-American Oil?
Yeah, that's what they call themselves now. But BP is a direct descendant.
No, exactly. I mean, it's the same company. You're absolutely right in that Dutch partnership. But I mean, it's the same players over and over again.
Yeah. Well, it's just that they are so powerful. And here's Obama. He was asked just a half hour ago at his press conference, do you feel a little funny about that decision you made 2 weeks before the oil blow up in the Gulf when you said that, we have to drill offshore and these companies, have reduced the dangers greatly. And he said, I still think we have to drill offshore, but, my mistake was taking the word of the companies. Well, for Pete's sake, of course they take the word of the companies. Look at the people that they had in the Interior Department, people who are still there, taking bribes and everything else from the oil companies. The system is corrupt. What Obama should have done is come in, got rid of all those people, given them jobs in the library if he couldn't fire them, and get some real control over these precious resources, despite the avarice and the desire of people like BP to control this important resource.
Okay, Ray McGovern, stay there. Let's come back and get your breakdown of where you see Afghanistan and Pakistan going, and then to the West, what your intel is from all your sources. Is it green light to go into Iran? Who will hit? U.S. operation with Israel? Israel goes it alone? We'll talk about that and a lot more, plus the North Korea situation.
Come, you masters of war.
We're going back to Ray McGovern here in a moment to get into the Predator drones and where he sees Afghanistan and Pakistan going. And basically, he says they're repeating the same things that happened in Vietnam, but now they have fancier weaponry. We'll go back to him in just a moment. We're going to get into North Korea with him and the situation with Iran, which to me is even scarier, the whole Iran situation. A quagmire is one thing and get a lot of troops killed and waste a lot of money, but war with Iran, in my layman research, looks even worse. So we'll discuss that in a moment with our guest. Okay, Ray, I've been adding my points. You got cut off by the break. You were getting into, they're out in Nevada. It's one of the main command centers. I've just seen it on the news. People in trailers, and he's like, it showed one of the young men. He goes, I love video games. Now I control the Predator. And it showed him sitting there, and they're going, okay, you've got clearance. Hit him. Go ahead and give it to him. And I mean, just it's so bizarre to see this. Break it down for us.
Well, let me put it this way. The chaplains out there at Creech Air Force Base, they're working overtime because some of these young fellas have a conscience. They do their work during the day. They go home and have dinner with their families, and they think, the wife says, well, how did things go at work today? And they can't quite say, well, we killed, we shot Hellfire missiles at 30 groups, and we're not real sure. So, long story short, these chaplains are actually being visited regularly by these poor NCOs who are ordered to do this kind of thing and have it on their conscience, to their credit. The other guys are the ones in Langley, Virginia, who are working for the CIA. They're the ones